empowering purple collar leaders in the digital economy. Here's your host, Dr. Brian Lambert.
Welcome to our second show. It's glad to see you here. We did it. We're back, and we're going to talk about what's going on in the space. We're also going to talk about what's happening for what we call a digital dilemma. We're going to talk a little bit about the digital dilemma today. We're going to talk about how to tackle that digital dilemma in our solution spotlight. I'll share a little bit of a framework or two in our blueprint breakthrough, and then we will hear a discussion, kind of a guided discussion on taking action in the digital space. So joining me today, we've got Eric, Mark, and Brad. Hey guys, thanks for joining the show today. How are y'all doing?
Great, Brian. Thanks for hosting. Glad to be here.
Yeah,
doing
Brad's
great.
in his car.
Happy to be here today.
Cool. Well, let me share with you a couple of things on the screen here, and we'll try to do some screen sharing on the news front. I've been compiling some news on the space, and this link to the Digital Command News will be up in our site. But as we're going through this in your live stream window, you have a couple of options. You can actually chat in the live stream, and definitely want you to do that. We have folks that are watching the live stream. And then you can also, on brianlambert.live, actually vote for show topics. So go to brianlambert.live and vote for show topics. As we get started on this, here's what's happening in the last 7 days or so that I curated. I spend some time every day curating recent news, and I can send a link out to this, but a couple of things that I wanted to point out that happened in the last week is actually Amazon announced their new model, and they're actually putting together a full stack in the AI space. So not only chips but, and models that we're all familiar with, the idea of a model, but also services, et cetera. And one of the things that I think is important for us to do is keep up on the news in the AI space. You can see articles here on how AI is impacting the job search. There's Amazon's recent update on their model. There's also AI innovations that are happening across what we would consider AI agents. And there's a lot of discussion on AI agents, how AI is impacting education. And moving into new spaces like what's being known as emotional AI or conversational AI. So these are kind of buzzwords, right? Everybody's trying to figure this out. But for today's news, those types of activities are headlines. So one of the spots that I think AI is really going to pick up in is in Internet of Things and logistics, where AI can really mine machine learning data, high volumes of data, and provide insights. So what do you guys think of our news board and this new innovation for the Brian Lambert Show is kind of a quick 2-minute tech update on what's going on in the AI space. What do you guys think?
It's a great idea.
I think it's great.
The question then would be, is there one specific site that you're going to aggregate these, Brian, or is there a number of sites that you're following? I'm
following like hundreds of sites, basically. I'm going to compile it into the Digital Command newsletter here, the news post. I'm trying to figure out how to send it as an actual email. Mm-hmm. Quite a steep fee to do that. But I'm curating hundreds of different sources to pull this together. And I do it every day and pull it into the news. So I'll be able to actually chat it into the link here. I'll put it into the show link. I'm going to chat it into the chat box now, and you can go and you can actually subscribe to it, or at least bookmark it, and you'll be able to check it out. It's it's on a site called Feedly, but the Feedly is basically what I'm using to aggregate everything into this newsletter. So I just posted the link. I'm gonna have to figure out how to make it a shorter link, but that's the long link. And Eric and Brett and Mark, can you guys actually click it and get to it? Okay. It looks like it's a really long link, so let me know if you have issues or not, and put it in the chat if you're able to get into it, and comment there. Every show will go over tech, 2 minutes of tech and what's happening in the AI space. All right, so moving on to our next segment, let's talk about today's digital dilemma. And today's digital dilemma that I want to focus on is what I call the forces of flight. And when you think about forces of flight, you might be wondering, well, what does that have to do with digital age, digital transformation, and AI? And I'm going to talk about that specifically in the context of deploying artificial intelligence inside of an enterprise, inside of an organization. One of the things that I've been working on and what we're seeing in Digital Command is a lot of questions about how do you get started with AI? How do you begin to actually deploy AI? And but one of the things through the conversations that we've been having is this idea that AI is more than a chatbot. And Eric, I know where you're at in Atlanta. We were together last week in Atlanta, and I'd love to just hear what your thoughts are on the concept of these forces of digital transformation and the conversations that you've been having with figuring out what is AI and how to deploy it. Anything you want to share there?
Yeah, just overall, and a neat way to look at it is a year over year. I mean, years or dog years or maybe 7 years isn't actually long enough. It feels like in the pace of change of data. But we did an AI event at the Technology Association of Georgia Sales Society up at Comcast. Shout out to Comcast at their Hedges Park a year ago in December. And Brian, it was awesome to have you in town for the anniversary of not just sharing your insights, doing a pre-book launch, almost with books, which was pretty cool. A headline coming out of that event last year at that same event, a lot of fear, uncertainty, ambiguity, right? And now a year later, there's a lot less fear, a lot more folks raising their hands since I've at least put my big toe in the water. And it wasn't half bad. And it even some use cases of, and here's what happened. Some stuff I really didn't enjoy doing got done for me. And then I was able to pick up, save a few hours, if not a few days, where AI left off, make it my own. And there's another group of people in the room this year hearing that message, empowered to go out and take that big for chaotic pond of AI, so to speak. And I think with all these announcements coming out on platforms and on, there's going to be even more folks that are going to be encouraged to take that step because of familiar brands.
Yeah, well, I totally agree in the idea that AI is becoming more mainstream, and there's a lot to figure out. There's a lot of words, there's a lot of technologies, there's a lot of advancements almost on a daily basis, but I think we're getting used to that, and we're starting to pay attention. And the questions that we got last week when we were together ranged, like you said, from how do I make this work for me to what's going to happen in the future. And thanks for sharing that, year over year view. I appreciate that. Makes it definitely think back of how fast things have moved in the last year or so. It's crazy. All right, so let's dive a little bit more into the digital dilemma with a visual here. I'm gonna share my screen and pull together a bit of a visual that we can look at. I'm going to use Miro for that. They're not a sponsor, but I like using Miro to share ideas. So I'm going to pull that in, and let me share my screen here. We'll do this every once in a while as we're exploring the digital dilemma. And really, what I'd love to do is walk you through this, and then we will we'll share a little bit and talk a little bit about it. And if you have questions about these concepts, feel free to put them in the chat. Reach out to us. You can go to brianlambert.live and chat that in. You can also add a idea for a show there, and I definitely encourage you to do that. In the future, we will actually be picking winners from the chat, and we'll be giving away free stuff. We'll give away free subscriptions, free memberships, even a copy of the AI Lead book as well. So on the screen here, I'm showing the forces of digital transformation that come from the new book, the AI Lead. And let me do a magic trick. Here it is. I got it in over the weekend, and it's real. It actually, we actually did a live stream unboxing of the AI Lead. But in this book, in the first 2 chapters, I talk about the forces of flight here. And the forces of flight are about enabling an AI enterprise. So if you think about an airplane taking off, and as we are trying to get our airplane of strategy off the ground, we need thrust. So strategy provides that thrust to help us get our organization off the ground. We also need innovation, and AI is driving a lot of innovation. Not only is AI driving innovation to give us lift, it's also helping us with our strategy. So we're seeing a lot more strategies to deploy and develop around AI, enterprise AI. So the lift of innovation provided by AI, we have to manage through that. And then also from a operations perspective, that's an operational strategy, and that's sometimes a drag, right? So just in an airplane, for us to be successful and get the airplane off the ground, we have to think in terms of overcoming drag. And in today's AI-driven world, there are operational components to drag. And then from a data perspective, there's a concept that I outline in the book quite a lot, which I call data drag. And data drag is the challenge of overcoming disjointed, fragmented, ungoverned, siloed data in order to drive your enterprise AI strategy. That's the concept of drag. And then underneath the airplane, for an airplane to get off the ground, you have to overcome the weight. You have to have enough lift to counterbalance and provide the overbalance, or if you will, the compensation for the weight. If you're too heavy, if the airplane's too heavy, it will not get off the ground. So the weight there in that case is oftentimes the adoption of AI, the behaviors and skills of people can actually make adoption slower, and also elongate or make it take quite a long time between that enterprise strategy being set and people adopting it. So to overcome the digital dilemma of adopting AI and using AI and understanding AI and getting our heads around AI, I think it's important to think about the digital transformation in the context of these forces, to think about, okay, well, what is the innovation here? What is the strategy of our organization as we move forward? And where could I leverage AI myself for my own skills and knowledge, but also, thinking proactively about how AI might actually be helpful to our operational strategy. So those are the 4 forces. Just like an airplane, you have to have enough thrust to overcome the weight and drag. You need to innovate, or you'll never get off the ground. That's the lift. And to successfully get off the ground and adopt and drive strategy, you have to overcome the weight and the drag. So that's the concept here of the forces of flight. Any comments from the panel on that? And what do you guys think of these forces?
Yeah, it's interesting. it's kind of which do you lead with, right? And it kind of depends on where organizations are in their AI adoption journey, right? I mean, some are upfront, they're just curious and they're exploring. Others are assessing. Others are trying to pilot it, maybe, and validate the investment that this is what we need to use. Others are at the point of they're deploying it now, right? But and last, how do they innovate? So I don't know if they have it. The journey that they've been going on is accurate. So they need to look at that from, you're looking at a thrust standpoint, enterprise wide. From the back of it, you've got, well, operationally, how do we make this happen? So it's really everyone. It sounds kind of cliche, working together to make it happen, because you can't just focus on one area of it. But I think a lot of it depends on where they are in the journey. Are they deploying it at this point? Are they still assessing where it's going to help?
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, and then who's we, right? So I think when you think about people and process and technology, there are many different perspectives. Obviously, you have individual workers,
Right.
people that are purple collar and they're digital, but there's also managers and leaders, and then executives, and even the board of directors. And each one of them is going to have a different perspective of what AI's impact is and what the value is of AI. So where is that coming from? You're seeing a huge investment in AI. The pressure to deploy AI, use AI, leverage AI is massive in the market. And then, companies and executives are trying to define their AI strategies, which can put a lot of pressure on people and managers, right? Mark, I think from your perspective as somebody who's worked in the cyberspace, it'd be interesting to hear your thoughts on, how do people in leadership roles juggle the different challenges of building resilient AI systems and protecting knowledge workers, purple collar workers, and also, their assets, their IP.
Are you directing that more at Brad, or would you like me to field that one?
Yeah, I mean, I'd love to hear from Brad from his role in cyber.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
one of the things I'm seeing in the world of AI, and it's not necessarily related directly to cyber, but we talk about weight, lift, thrust, and drag. You see a lot of the companies that are approaching it now, and you see a lot of the training opportunities come across your social media posts. The thrust, I think that the perception is that let's get our people really seasoned on the latest and greatest in Chat GPT prompts. In other words, that will create thrust by getting the tool sets and the skill sets really in high gear, without taking that step back that you need to say, how is this going to change your actual roles within the organization? How are we going to leverage this for true transformation? It's they're going deep on the skill sets, which when pursued without the context of looking at the larger digital transformation in your role and how it changes, whether you're a guide or a protector, it's going deep at that point.
Well, an
love
interesting
that, yeah.
point about that, Brad, is when it comes to people using AI and chatbots on their own within the organization, right? I don't know how much guidance, at least from my perspective, people are given on how to use it, right? In fact,
Right.
to some degree, they're not. So that's kind of a different conversation between people taking advantage of AI to improve their efficiency and productivity, right, that they're doing, versus embedding AI into these workflows and processes across the organization, right, which they're using to run, grow, and transform their industries or their businesses.
Right. I would agree, for sure.
Yeah, well said. And again, if you have any thoughts on this from your perspective, what questions do you have? Feel free to put them in the chat. And I hope these forces of flight help you think this through. And maybe you have you yourself are in the pilot seat, right? You have to pilot these forces and think through, how do you deploy AI? What help do people need? And what's our strategy? Or perhaps you're along for the ride, it feels like. And you're in seat 27B or something, and you're along for the ride. Well, there's things that you can do there too, such as tuning into the show, checking out Digital Command, and reading the latest trends and news to help you understand the new language that's really being developed in the AI space. And that's really how you can start understanding it. What I'd love to do is hear some tips from the panel, from you guys on what actions can people take individually to actually get more comfortable with AI from their own work environment, and then also, maybe work with others. Any thoughts from you all, Eric or Mark or Brad, on how to actually take action with AI?
I can say, specifically, it's most people have. I think it's find the bot that
Sure.
you're most comfortable with.
I'll jump in.
But go ahead, Eric. Oh, we got a little bit of a pause there.
Yeah, he's got.
And maybe while Eric's getting that together, again, it's like
I was going to say so there are so many free demos out there.
Yeah. Well, so I'm going to pause. Eric, I think you have a bit of a lag. It makes it tough for our listeners to hear what you're saying. But we did hear demos. So I'll pass it over to you, Mark. Why don't you build up?
Yeah, I mean, it's like anything else. Try it out. Look at the different types of bots that are out there. I mean, easily you can work with, Copilot, Gemini. You can work with AI Companion. There's just a number of them that are out there. But get in there and start using it. I'd start using it personally. But in your role, think about the questions that you would want to ask if you're designing something or developing something. If you're in instructional design, right? What questions maybe you want to ask about your content, and then you evaluate your output, and then you refine it. I think it's like anything else. It's one of those things that over time you get much more as you use it. You learn quickly how to become more effective. It's really simple. It's not this big scary thing. It's very, very simple. It's a virtual assistant that has access to just about any knowledge you need to help you.
Yeah.
That's how I think.
Well said. And I think there are some things that you could do. One, watch the tutorials. Two, actually write down the words you hear. For example, what is a LLM? What is GPU, if you're not sure what that is. Think through what is the view of security, data. Ask yourselves these questions, and actually you can use AI to help you explore those concepts. And so what I'm saying is, I think what we're all saying, from the demos to the tutorials, is be curious. And we're all in kind of a new space here. From an adoption perspective of using AI, we have to get more comfortable with it, as we've been talking about. There are also things happening in the enterprise space to actually deploy AI from a worker perspective and then a process perspective. We're seeing a lot of things happening with process improvements and automation. And then you may be hearing some things about agents, deploying agents, which is an evolution from chatbots. So when you think about that forces of flight, there are a lot of things to factor in there, such as what is our enterprise data, right? So what's the data drag? What's the operational drag of our own enterprise data? How do we protect that enterprise data? How do we protect those assets from being consumed by large language models and using it to train? And there's settings that you can choose, and there are things that you can do to protect your own data. But then also, like what Brad was saying, take a step back and ask, well, what's the strategy here in the first place? What are we trying to achieve? What is the role of AI, and where is our company going? And having those conversations with management. And if, if it's still too soon and the company's in a bit of a wait and see, or perhaps they're piloting things out in different areas, then get educated, get ready for the changes that are coming. So much that we can do for that as individuals and team members, and that will help us decrease the weight back to the innovation or back to the forces of flight. And then from a lift perspective, understanding what AI's impact is, right? What can be that innovation? What's possible with AI? And really, a lot of people aren't even sure yet, right? They're still trying to figure it out.
And some of that's probably role specific, right? So, CEOs are, how do we use AI to stay ahead of competition? Chief marketing officers, how do we generate content that's more engaging? If you're in legal, what does that look like? So that it's really about the types of roles that are going to, implement and leverage AI within the organizations.
Yeah.
For me, one of the things you touched on, Brian, and it kind of expounds upon what I was saying is, in the age of AI, you can attack the weight by sending your people to the latest and greatest chat BT skill sets, or the right queries. But I'm already seeing in the world of cyber, what we call the guardrails, the protector role, is there's cyber companies being developed now that are targeting, securing LLMs. So you're seeing that the pointed focus of cyber going towards the AI world. And then, in terms of strategy to take that to the next step, I think what people need to do, and organizations need to do, is think about helping their people define their job as something they work on more than in the world of AI. Because, with the force multiplication of this automation in these tool sets, it's you can accelerate so much of your job into the 80%. It's finding the 20% where you're the guide, where you're the person working on the goals of the organization rather than in your job on a daily basis.
Yeah, and I like that concept a lot. It's this, if you think about AI helping you with more routine tasks and helping you with more of the mundane, and perhaps improving your ability to create or produce, what that in theory should do is free you up to think through more of the holistic view, or the more strategic impact, or what what you're talking about, Brad, the idea of what is your role, and let's work on the role, probably in thinking through, how do I collaborate with other people, how do I take action on the goals, what's happening from a strategic perspective, what can I be doing, and I like that perspective of working on the job instead of in the job. And I think what we're going to start seeing is a lot of cross-functional acceleration and a lot more synergy there, but that's going to create a lot of challenges, because a lot of how people think and act and action things is based on the silo that they're operating within, or the department that they're
It's going to be a paradigm shift in thinking. I mean, if the AI in your job unencumbers you from the 60% of the work, the nitnoid admin, the research, the writing, the drafting, what is that time that you've just gotten back? How is it best used to accelerate the needs of the business?
Yeah, that's right. That's great. So let's move into the aha moment. This is the second. Let's see. This would be number 6. We have 6 different segments that we're going through, and hopefully these have been transparent. But one of the things that we want to do is think about, okay, let's take a step back and ask ourselves, well, what is the big takeaway here? What's the aha moment? And we would like you to do that on the chat as well, on the stream. We talked a little bit about the news. We've talked about some of the trends. We use the forces of flight to think this concept through in our own roles and in our own organizations. What we need to do now is kind of synthesize this and ask ourselves, well, what's the big takeaway? What's the aha moment? And for me, it's the idea that all of us are in an organization, and that organization is really a system. It's an ecosystem. And AI is fundamentally changing how that system or that ecosystem works. And, from an individual perspective, that means a lot. But from an organization perspective, it means that value can be created in new ways. When you think about the forces of flight and the airplane visual that we use, the innovation and the ability to create new things can actually create new jobs, create new roles, create new value creation in the organization. That's my big aha moment. What about you, Brad or Mark?
Well, if we're talking about creating value within the organization, right? What are we thinking? How do these things, from a ROI standpoint, is that what we're looking at? Or is that, too quantifiable at this point? How does this help us? It helps us optimize our fixed assets, or increase market share, or I don't know, reduce variable costs, those types of things. How does AI help us do all those things? In the end, that's how it's going to be measured, right?
Those are good questions. I think that really lends itself well to what is our impact that we're trying to achieve here. I think we're seeing it, to Brad's point, a lot of that impact is at the individual keyboard level. When I talk about the organization, the value creation, there's a lot of opportunity there. And I think that's an aha moment that you're sharing is, okay, well, how would we know if we're actually creating that value? What impact would that be on the market, or in our products, in our impact that we're creating for our customers?
And individually, I mean, my experience is it's made me tremendously more productive from a development and design standpoint, much quicker, and now my role is more of refining and reviewing what the output is, and allows me to be more creative and more and less time invested to be accurate, because it reduces my search time down ridiculously. So I'm much more productive. But you're right. What do I do at that other time to make me more effective and more valuable in my role?
Yeah, I mean, I look at the paradigm of AI tactical and AI strategic. Tactical is, I'm going to take another course today on advanced chat GPT prompts. Strategic is, wow, I've freed up myself. I can do these reports my boss needs. I can run analytics on our logistics distribution centers much quicker. What does that enable me to drive forward? What does that enable me to make myself relevant, to increase my personal brand? And in time, I think as organizations let people do that and job descriptions become on, not in, I think you're going to see not only like internal ROIs, but market. You're going to create new markets in and of itself around that expertise and around the productization of that expertise.
Yeah, great points. And that's what you're alluding to actually is a great segue into our next show, where we're going to talk about, well, how do we learn this stuff? What do we need to do to learn this stuff? And especially thinking about how fast things are moving, how can we actually use AI to learn how to learn about AI? Right. So we'll talk about that in an upcoming show. We'll also talk about the idea of getting into this space to understand AI. Is this a highly technical field? What about if I'm not a technical person? What do I need to do then? And then in a future show as well, at the beginning of next year, we'll talk a lot more about the concept of data drag. And I see a comment in the chat about data drag being one of the aha moments, is to think about the idea of overcoming the drag and doing what we can with data drag, as well as our people, to make sure that AI can really attack something in the idea of being real, right? Being practical and real. That's important for overcoming data drag and perhaps these change management issues that we're talking about. So we'll talk about those in our upcoming show as well. So that's going to be a wrap for this show. You can always tune in to brianlambert.live. You can chat there. You can also actually put in requests for topics at brianlambert.live. And then tune in every Wednesday at noon Eastern for the live show. And we'll see you after the first of the year. And thank you so much, everybody, for tuning in to the Brian Lambert live show.
My pleasure, as always.
Thanks, everybody. Thanks.
Take care, everyone.
Lambert.